everybody. This is the Think About It channel. Today, we're doing a segment called Demo where we interview Philly area, South Jersey area musicians. I talk to them about what they do, how they do, why they do, where they do, when they do, how they do, all the do's. So today, I have Brandon Smith. He's a long lifetime friend of mine. He is also, there's the cat already. We were talking about the cat right before we got on. The cat was going to inevitably show up.
Yep.
He is a lifelong friend of mine. We go back, what, 25 years at this point?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Elementary school, because we're old now.
Yeah, we were old.
Um, so yeah, let's just get right into it. So Brandon has been in several different bands, playing shows not only in like South Jersey, Philly area, but I remember you did a whole West Coast tour at one point. You've played NYC now a few times. You were playing a lot of Atlantic City for a while. So I guess my first question for you is, you've been playing instruments, I guess mostly guitar is your main instrument, right?
Um, I would say, yeah, I mean that's the main one that I play in bands. It's definitely not the one I'm best at, for
Okay.
sure. But yeah.
And when did you start? I'm trying to remember your story. So did you start playing at 11 or you started your first band at 11?
I actually have been fall of 2001, so I was 10. It was probably like 3 months after I started playing, maybe 4 months.
Okay. At 2001 feels like an eternity ago.
It does, yeah.
But it does. It's crazy. So you started playing guitar was what you first picked up at 10?
Yeah, acoustic guitar was the first one I had. I'm exclusively lefty, so I started playing lefty. And then I had one or two lessons with a local guitar teacher and just wasn't getting any better. And usually after, you're not going to get better after a couple lessons. So that was
Right.
just my first problem. But then um I couldn't do the things that he was saying, like the exercises and stuff. And he's like, well, maybe you're a right-handed guitar player. It's actually kind of common where, there's people that are left-handed, you just switch it over and your dominant hand is the one that plays the notes instead of strumming. So I was like, okay, well, we'll try that. He restrung it, flipped it over. I've been playing righty ever since.
Okay. Interesting. So I guess my first like real question for you here is when did you realize that musicianship, making music, engineering music, being in a band was something you were really passionate about and you're like, hey, I'm gonna do this. This is what I want to do.
I think that kind of started probably at I mean, as far back as I can remember, maybe the late 90s. So I remember there was, every school kind of has career day
Hmm.
and different things. And I was at least involved in one facet of the entertainment industry at the time, which was I wanted to be a ventriloquist. That's when I started. And as the years went on, when you know that stopped being a viable career in 1974, and so I uh, I always wanted to play music. I loved music, and I just never could really figure it out. It was all types of music that started me on it, like even R&B, funk, um, especially like Matchbox 20, Third Eye Blind and stuff. My mom had those CDs, and I borrowed those. And really, I watched like punk bands really young, and that was the first time I thought, okay, I can definitely do this, also for sure. Because like I watched Eric Clapton, I'm like, I can't do this. Like, there's no way that this is gonna happen. Then I saw the Ramones, and I was like, okay, maybe I can do this.
Maybe I can do that.
Yeah, it was more like, yeah, it was trying to just, I don't even know. It was, I mean, everybody I think starts trying to emulate somebody.
Yeah.
And when you have such a weird musical mix of things, it's hard to emulate anybody. So I think that's when I started writing right around that same time. I don't think that there was ever a time I wasn't writing, but I try to play songs from like Green Day and Goldfinger and Blink-182 and stuff like that. And only because anything else that I like, I loved Van Morrison. I wanted to learn like Caravan and stuff from the album Moondance, but it was way too difficult even to this day, I've been playing for over 20 years, and there's some songs that I'm like, okay, I got to sit in the woodshed and kind of learn this a little bit and learn new chords and stuff. But yeah, I guess it would be, yeah, I can't really remember a time that I didn't want to do that. And as far as the engineering and stuff goes, that was maybe still even when I was really, really young, like maybe 11 or 12, because you're not exposed to like a bar scene, so you don't know how
Right.
engineers are. You don't know like what their career is. But I watched documentaries on people that mixed like the Beach Boys records and stuff like that. And so when I watched that, I was like, okay, so these are people behind the scenes really producing and making these records. And then after that, I just knew I wanted to do that. And then it kind of evolved into live sound just from a career aspect because as much as everybody wants to be a producer, it doesn't quite work that way in the real world.
Yeah.
So that's how that translated to that. Eventually, I just, everything became because back in the day, you had to have a record deal because, you know,
Right.
boarding costs thousands of dollars. Now recording is more affordable. A lot of people do it at home. I still recommend for bands to not do it yourself, not do it at home. You'll do what we did with our last record, which took 8 years to make. And that was just because I couldn't stop. I listened to it so many times and I was like, this is never going to be good. And I would shelve it.
Perfectionist in you.
Yeah. And so I went on a total tangent from your question, but
No, it sort of led into my next question, which is you are not just a pretty face, my friend. You have some educational background to back up what you're doing. Because I can't tell you, like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm thoroughly entrenched in the music scene. But I have met many a guitar player or drummer or bass player that like have no sort of solid musical background. Like they don't know any theory. They don't know like how to keep time necessarily, like time signature stuff like that. They do tab. Nothing wrong with tab. Like tab is all well and good, but your stuff. You went and studied audio engineering, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. Went to the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences, Tempe, Arizona. And yeah, there was two choices really, and there still remains two choices. One is Full Sail in Florida, and the other one is in Arizona. But the way it was pitched to me was, you know, one of these doesn't have an internship program, so that's going to be tougher when you get out. It's 5 times the price, but the other one, has a 21% success rate,
Ooh,
and that was the one that I chose. So that was the one for me to be like, the very first test we even had was called sink or swim, which is literally put in a real world situation, and if you blow it, you blow the gig. There's no going
yeah,
back. You don't get to do a do-over. And that was the best way for me to learn was to be like, okay, here you're thrown to the lions. You have to do this. If you don't do this well, there's you blew it. Somebody comes and gets the gig and you lose. And so it wasn't so much as of course we sat in a classroom and learned things and did
right.
ear training and all that stuff. But the thing that was the most valuable is actually like the real world applications that you get sent on.
Hmm.
I got sent on a club gig to do sound for Vanilla Ice. That was one of the first things that
Oh,
ever
cool.
happened when I went out there. And the nicest guy in the world, also. He wanted me to call him Rob. Um, I don't know what his actual real full name is, but yeah, he was the nicest guy in the world. Couldn't have been nicer. There was ones that weren't as nice, um,
You don't
and
have to name them in case by some weird alternate universe this does go somewhere someday. So you
yeah.
don't have to name them. But that's got to be like nerve wracking. Like someone like
Oh,
Vanilla Ice has been
yeah,
doing his thing a long time. Like he knows his stuff too. And then here you
exactly.
are,
And it was a
cross
different
country.
world. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And especially him, kind of giving me the rundown in the beginning.
Hmm.
We're like, hey, I don't do rap, I do thrash metal now, just so you know. So I'm like, okay, like that actually makes my gig easier, if anything. And he's like, yeah, I mean, you're gonna see me punching people in the audience. They're gonna love it. Don't worry about anything. Just, stick to the doing the monitors. And even that, he was like, oh, I don't need much of this. And it was just, it was, he did Ice Ice Baby, I think, more than once. And
Funny.
yeah, he was fighting people in the audience. They were loving it. The blast. Super cool dude.
That's crazy. Um, so for the people who are not familiar with you, people outside of sort of our tri-state area, you are the front man, and is it safe to say mastermind behind Honey I'm Homeless?
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
It's,
So how would you describe Honey I'm Homeless to people that have never heard you guys before?
I would say definitely pop punk flavored, definitely a little bit of 90s influence for sure. Even there's some songs, that are hard rock or alternative. There's some songs that are emo. There's some songs that are, you know, just the epitome of pop rock, like adult contemporary. Um, there's a little bit of everything, but it still kind of has the kind of the tinge of where the influence of like Alkaline Trio and bands like that came from for me, which is, you know, pretty happy sing-alongs, but
Mhm.
about the worst kind of depressive content that you could think of lyrically. And that's kind of what we do. So think of, in the same way that Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind is a song, about meth and dying, and it's one of the happiest sounding songs in the world.
You never really stop to think about it, you just like, it just feels good. But yeah, I would say, like, and I've known you for a long time, like you said at the beginning, and I've watched sort of you grow as a musician and an engineer and stuff like that. Like Honey I'm Homeless is definitely like, it does have like that pop punk rock feel, but it definitely isn't afraid to branch out from that mold and try different things. Um, Especially on the God Awful EP. Is that what it was? The God Awful EP.
Yeah.
That's there was a little bit of everything on that one. Is that one on Spotify? Can the people find that on Spotify?
No, that is discontinued forever.
Because it was God Awful.
Oh yeah.
It
It,
wasn't. It wasn't god awful. It was fun. Oh, it was fun.
it was something. It's one of those things where those would never make it on any single one of those would never make it on. And there's actually another one that I kept off of that, which tells you how bad that one is, which is probably never going to be released because I still haven't finished that one.
But in all
But
seriousness, like your stuff is good. Like we're joking right now about that album, but your stuff is good.
um, yeah, no, I mean you never want to be like, yeah, I'm awesome, but no, it's it just has to come out of me, and it just has to be
Yeah,
put down, released. That's really it. I mean, once you start making music for other people, that's when it starts to suck.
true. I can totally feel that. Um, so in the eras of Brandon Smith music, how many different bands have you been a part of? And nothing against like the Honey I'm Homeless guys if this is not the answer, but which has been your favorite to be a part of so far?
I would say, well, definitely Honey, I'm Homeless is my favorite by a lot. Um, but only because it's different eras of the writing, which everything was so delayed if you really look at the timeline, because there was Aretha Franklin, of course, we caught some traction, got some popularity in the day, um, you know, 10, 12 years ago. And that was more, every single one of those songs, except for one, was written in like ninth grade, high school, maybe. There was only one newer song that I wrote that was written in 2011. So it was all just old stuff that just never got released still and had like a pop punk flavor to it. Um, but I would say that the songs evolved as just being so much better, especially because, I let somebody do those first two albums, which was a godsend because Dan Pillett was the engineer. It's a fantastic engineer. Went to Drexel, and he mixed that really well. It was great. There was only from a creative standpoint the problems with it, and you can hear those on. I re-released it on a compilation called um, the brand complete Brandon Smith discography, I think it's called, and uh, and that's on our music. But those are the first two albums put together, same recording engineer, same couple years apart. So those that would be Aretha Franklin solo. Those were fun songs. We still do a ton of the solo album songs, for sure. Stolen is always a fan favorite. We get asked for that a lot. That was on that first record. Um, but I would say Honey, I'm Homeless is more everything has been me playing all the instruments and then hiring a band to be behind me. So that's still the same. But now this is the iteration that's been around the longest by
Yeah.
far. I think Al's been in the band since 2015 now. And so, yeah, 10 years he's been in the band. And we've been all over playing. The bass player thing, it's a revolving door. It just is going to be, it's just going to be that forever. I don't know if we'll really find one that's home based, but, um, and that's partly my fault. And that's something I've talked about before where it's like, I write all the bass lines. So there's no room for improv or jamming or
Sure.
anything like that. So with bass players, it's kind of hard to get them on board with that to say like, no, you can't do the things you want to do because it's my brain. So some bass players are okay with it and they realize that they're part of a kind of the touring band of my brain. Um, Al, of course, he adds a little sizzle. It's the same thing. I write the drums as well, so I give these to them to learn so we can do live shows. But most of the recording is, at least the demos are all me, and then I kind of give them, and then they put like their own spin on it, sort of,
Nice.
as much as can be. So I leave a little bit of room for them to spice it up and make it sound like themselves, sort of, but barely. I like
Little
to,
flair of them in there somewhere.
yeah. I mean, you got to do that at least. But yeah, same thing. I got way off the track of your question again.
It's all good. It's all good. So I'm gonna shoot some of the Brandon Smith era bands and works at you, and I want you to spit back your favorite song from each.
All right.
All right, we're gonna go middle school Brandon here and say I'm gonna pull this one way out of the basement. Look, you know it already. You know what I'm gonna say.
I
Dying
do.
in Vain.
Yeah.
Favorite Dying in Vain song.
Um, I would say Out the Door was my best pop songwriting.
Out the Door was a banger.
I liked that one. There was one that was called Closed, which was towards the end of us being a band. That was really well written. Um, I just sung it poorly. I think there's a demo of me doing it either way, but I mean, I sang out of pure necessity still to this day. 'Cause I hate singing and I'm not good at it. But I especially was bad at it then. So yeah, I would say probably Out the Door. That's one of the only ones that I really remember word for word. I think the other ones could. I think there were some that seeped in. I think I started our song Noasis. I think I did in that era. I think that was the last song that Dying in Vain ever actually did. Yeah,
Was Dying in Vain the very first band, or were there bands before Dying in Vain?
that was definitely the first band.
Okay.
Um, and I can't remember what we were called first, but we had a band name that was somebody else had, and we had to change it. And it was in the MySpace era.
Oh
And
yes.
I I'm sure I'll find that in my
My inner
archive.
unk is like just twitching right now. So
Yeah.
I teach middle school kids, and they found out today or yesterday that I was 33, and one of them called me unk. I was like,
I,
yeah, you better
I
mind your
secretly
your
love
unk.
I get called that sometimes in recording sessions.
That's and I
And
threw all the
I
brain rot
love
at them, and they start cringing. It's fantastic.
it. Nice.
Favorite Aretha Franklin song.
Ooh. Let's say definitely the funnest to do live is Hide the Bottle, but that's not my favorite, I would say. I think that one is just because of the energy that
Yeah.
people bring to it live, which is crazy. We actually ended up playing that at a Toys for Tots show we did
Oh,
last night.
nice.
And it was the first time we played it in over 10 years, and the place went crazy. So that's one that's enduring. That's a well-written song, I think. Um, but I would say Sight, I really like. That's a contender. Um, really like Dead also. So I would say, hmm, man, that's a tough one. Those were all so similar on that EP.
And they were all good songs.
Some of them were good.
So they were
I'd say the
I'm
opening
also a little
track.
biased because, in case if you didn't know, people at home, if you didn't know, I was on that album. I was fortunate enough to be on that album. If you didn't know, I did a little singing. I did some singing on, I think, two of the tracks on that album, the
You
Welcome to
did,
Rio Grande album.
yeah, you did a great job on that. That was good.
So it was a fun time to get to see like what went into making that album and how meticulous things were. And I remember when I got my copy of the album and I played it for people because they were like, "Oh, we want to hear you sing," whatever, whatever. Like, oh, this sounds like really good. They were like pleasantly surprised because like it was like, here's the rock band from Rio Grande, and they're like, oh, this actually sounds really good. This is pretty good. People were pleasantly surprised about how good Aretha Franklin was, at least in my circle of people.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, you did great. You were on my least favorite track of anything I've ever written in my whole life, which is so long. It's not a good song, but you did great. It sounds great, but that's a bad song. That song sucks.
What is your favorite solo work, just Brandon Smith song?
Ooh.
Your Mannequin Impact era.
Oh man, those were all bad. That that whole album was really bad.
We can skip
Um,
that if you want.
oh, that is so bad. Yeah, I'll skip that one. That was I can't think of a good song on that. Or no, there was one that I reused. What was that that um I reused the chorus of one of the songs way later. Oh, you sent me the screenshot of that before. What was it?
That was a long time ago.
Oh, Hotels.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Hotels ended up yeah, that was
Is
written back
Hotels now a Honey I'm Homeless song?
then. It is, yeah.
Yeah. And wasn't there a music video for it?
I took the music video down. Um,
Ah.
I'm gonna probably re-upload something or maybe a lyric video. It's a shame to waste all that. It was an expensive video to make, and but there's just people in it that I don't want to see ever again.
I hear that.
Yeah, so I might re-release that. We'll see. It's still on there. But yeah, sorry. What was I saying? What was the question?
Favorite Honey I'm Homeless song?
Oh, right. Yeah, my favorite from the solo album would probably be, I mean, Stolen and Oasis are both the most personal to me. So I love Oasis lyrically. I gave it purposely so much room because we mostly always open with it. We go back and forth between Entanglement and Oasis as our opener for every show. So Oasis, I kind of wanted to just come right at people and be like, okay, this is what we're talking about. This is literally a love song to alcoholism from a 19-year-old kid. Like this is who we are right now, and you know that's us. And I like to start albums kind of introducing what you're about to get into because
Sure.
every album is it's so different and varied and weird, but at the same time, it has to come together like a story, or else it doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, so I would say, Yeah, probably Stolen, I think is my favorite from that era.
So I'm going to, because I think Zoom says I'm short on time. So I'm going to sort of bundle my last couple questions together. So not only do you do a lot of great work musically, but you're low key, like really in the community a lot. You do a lot of stuff for a lot of different organizations, and I think a lot of times it gets overlooked. Um, and I don't think people necessarily realize, like people are like, oh yeah, Brandon Smith, Honey, I'm Homeless, whatever, Aretha Franklin, whatever. I don't think people realize how much you contribute to organizations like Toys for Tots. I know you were really doing things with like Elephants for Autism. I know a couple years ago you did like a fundraiser for breast cancer research. So tell us like a little bit about like the philanthropist in you, I guess.
I think really my goal is, you know, it's the same thing I tell bands all the time is we're doing original music. This is not our cash cow. There's not like if you expect to make money doing original music, you are in the wrong business. It's just not. Especially the way, I mean, if you got in at certain times, or even if you're in on the current, way that people get famous, which is TikTok and viral and things like that. Um, but if you're just plugging away and you're touring and you're doing an original band, there is no reason why at every turn you shouldn't be trying to do something for somebody that's a little less well off. So that's kind of my mindset is to be, you know, make almost every show count basically because we're not a do 100 gigs a year type band. We like to really be picky about the shows
Mm-hmm.
we play. And so as much as we can, pretty much every show that we do a year is some kind of charitable organization because why else would we do it? You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to play a show and like, hey, we sold 4 shirts. Here's gas money for you guys. Like, I'd much rather be like, hey, here's actually what we did is, the homeless people that live behind Walmart now have 6 coats. So
Yeah,
that's like
that's
a
cool.
little more important.
So super cool. And speaking of merch, by the way, you can cop your Honey I'm Homeless merch. I've been rocking this the whole time, trying to hide it. You
Oh,
can you can
nice.
get your Honey I'm Homeless merch wherever your Honey I'm Homeless merch is sold. We'll be sure to put links everywhere that links go, so you can grab that.
Yes,
Uh,
honeyimhomeless.com is pretty much the headquarters.
it's the headquarters. So I have two final quick questions. One is sort of fun. One is sort of leading into the end here. You're a big Yankees fan. People don't know that. You're wearing your Yankees hat now. I don't
Oh,
think you ever take it off. I'm not sure you actually have hair. Well, you
no,
you definitely used to have hair.
I
Uh,
definitely don't have any left, that's for sure.
so we're recording this. It's January of 2025. What are your Yankees hot takes predictions for this season?
Well, number one, um, we need to talk about Soto. I think it's important.
We have to talk about Soto.
Yes. I'm urging every Yankees fan to mercilessly boo Soto the second he comes back to the stadium, which I think is in June, one of the first series. Just don't let up. Don't like, oh hey, here you got us to this. No, just mercilessly boo him. It's important to do so. He purposely didn't sign to the Yankees because they wouldn't give him a suite, even though Derek Jeter had to buy his own suite.
A little petty, if you ask me.
Think you're better than Jeter? Get out of my face. That and the prospects that we got in the offseason, I really feel good about. I know we're at least going to be in the ALCS again. We have to worry about the Astros, who are going to be hitting trash cans and stealing signs and cheating as they often do. Um, we got lucky that last year they couldn't cheat because of pitch com. So yeah, so pretty much yeah, we're going at least to the championship series.
I'm not super excited about having to see him a lot now as a Phillies fan. I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
super excited about having to see him like every month.
yeah, you're gonna
It
see
is
him a
what it
lot.
is. But let's be real, no one's catching the Dodgers. So
Yeah.
so what does it matter? So I guess to wrap things up is what's sort of next in store for you and Honey I'm Homeless, and where can people find you guys if they want to listen more, find out more, become more?
Yeah, most everything that you can find us on is honeyimhomeless.com. Um, and you can find us on Instagram, Honey I'm Homeless NJ. That's where we're most active as far as talking to people and stuff like that. So you can reach out to us for anything. We have two new singles out. One is called Semantics and one is called Cry Baby. They're both on there. And you can find those on anywhere that music is sold, Spotify, Apple Music, TikTok, even Instagram. Pretty much anywhere that has it will be in there. And all the lyrics are uploaded so you can see like the new stuff and the words for everything. So yeah, I would say honeyimhomeless.com shows you where kind of everything is. But if you want to really interact with us, definitely Instagram, honeyimhomelessnj. And yeah, we got a new album coming out next year. Gonna try to hopefully write some by the end of this year. So yeah, I think Semantics and Crybaby will probably be on that album. They're both very different songs, but um, yeah, it kind of shows the new direction we're going. So.
All right, Brandon. Well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your life to catch up with me and anybody who clicks on this. If anybody clicks on this, at least me and you will know what happened.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. I definitely had some verbal diarrhea there. Went off topic quite a few times, but hopefully, hopefully people watch and continue to support you. And yeah, it's gonna what's the show called that you're doing?
So the channel's called Think About It, and this segment's called Demo. It's where I interview musicians, but I'm hoping to also interview like writers and entrepreneurs and like musical theater performers too. So I got a list of people I've been reaching out to. You, my friend, are number one. So thank you for
Awesome.
being here, being my guinea pig.
I'm honored. Thank you for having me.